All right, so at this point, you should have a new project folder created. That's great. Make sure you have the check mark, saving it into Inventor Practice. The next step is getting into and creating your parts. So if I click on New, I get this dialog box that gives me information about the different file types that I can create inside Inventor. The first one is standard IPT, that stands for Inventor Part File, standard being standard measurement. Um, you can get into and choose if you want to be in metric or in English, so inches. But typically, we're just going to default with just standard IPT. So IPT, once again, stands for Inventor Part File. IAM stands for Inventor Assembly. You need at least 2 IPTs in order to create an assembly. We have DWG, which is a drawing file, and then IPN, which is Inventor Presentation. Right now, we only need standard IPT, and we're going to be spending most of our time with standard IPT for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create. Now, once I click Create, I now have transitioned over into the drawing space. Across the top, I have the ribbon. On the left-hand side, I have the model browser, which is probably one of the most important aspects of the screen that most people ignore. This is essentially a time machine that allows you to keep track of all of the clicks and all of the different modifications that you make for your particular parts or features. And if you mess something up, you can go back to that exact moment in time where that happened and fix it without having to undo everything else that you've done. And then the white space, or in your case, probably gray space, that is going to be where you draw out your parts. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is just take a look at what parts are we making. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the sheets that you're going to be looking at as you make your parts. You will have access to this as an IP or as a PDF file rather, and you will use this to help you design out your Inventor parts. So for this first part I'm looking at, it is just simply a cube. Cube because all the sides are the same length, so 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches. And then I have several features that make up this cube. I have 2 square pegs that are coming out, and then I have a hole in the top. Looks like it is a diameter of 1 inch with a depth of 0.5 inches. So for me to break this down, I like to start with the largest values first and then work my way down to the smaller values. So at its core, this is really just a 2 inch by 2 inch by 2 inch cube. So that's where I'm going to start with this, is I'm going to make a 2 by 2 by 2 cube. In the upper left-hand corner, I have Start 2D Sketch. So I'm going to click on that. I'm greeted with my X, Y, and Z work planes. In math class, you spend a lot of time with your XY coordinate system. In order for things to be 3D, you actually need one more, which is Z. So I have my XY plane, my YZ plane, and my XZ plane. I typically go with my XY plane. Really, it doesn't matter in this case which work plane you're working from. In the future, it may matter to you more, but right now, this is just entry level learning how to use the software. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the XY plane. And at its core, if I were to turn a 3D cube into a 2D shape, that would be a square. So up here in my Create menu, if I hit the drop-down menu, you can see that I have different options for creating rectangles. I have my 2-point where I can click once and then click another time to get my rectangle. I have my 3-point rectangle where I can click once, twice, 3 times. It allows me to skew it out, change it if it's a little bit more complex. 2-point center, where I can click once and it draws it from the center out. And then I have the 3-point center, which gives me even more control with how I'm drawing out my rectangle. In this case, I recommend going with the 2-point center. I prefer to start drawing from the origin 0, 0, and then drawing out. I know that this needs to be a 2 inch by 2 inch square, so I'm going to type on the keyboard 2, Tab on the keyboard, hopefully. Try it again. 2, tab, 2, enter, and that will create a 2-inch by 2-inch square. Now I am still in the rectangle selection tool. So that means if I click again and continue to click, I will keep making these different rectangles. That's not what I want. I would like to get out of this tool. So to escape this command, I can right click and say, okay. That cancels out the tool. I can use my window, so click and drag with my mouse, hover over it, drag to select it, and then hit delete on the keyboard, and that gets rid of any of the additional rectangles I might have accidentally made. And you can always tell if you're still in a tool because it's going to be highlighted. So up here across the top, I know I'm in the rectangle tool because it is selecting the rectangle, but I don't want those, so I'm going to delete them out. The next step is finish my sketch, and I want to extrude this shape an additional 2 inches. That's what makes it 3D. An extrusion is like pulling a material through a mold or a form. So I have my mold, which is a 2-inch by 2-inch square, and now I want to extrude that material through that shape. Right now it defaults at 1 inch. I want to change it to 2 inches. So now I have my 2-inch by 2-inch by 2-inch cube. All right, let's see what else. All right, so at the top we have a hole in the top. So it's a diameter of 1 inch at a depth of 0.5 inches. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add that hole in the top. So I'm going to start 2D sketch once again and choose where I want to put that hole. I obviously would like to put it on the top of this cube. And then I'm going to grab my circle tool and draw a circle. I know that the diameter of this is meant to be 1 inch, so I'm going to type in 1 inch and hit enter. Obviously, this is not centered. To center out features on parts, you can click on the dimension tool, click on the object or shape that you want to dimension. So in this case is the circle, and I want to dimension to the right side of this part. Half of 2 inches is 1 inch. Do the same thing up and down. Half of 2 inches is 1 inch. So now I've centered out my 1 inch circle in the center of this 2 inch by 2 inch square. Finish my sketch, and now I can extrude this. This is pulling the material up and out. It's taking on the same features as what I did before. But Inventor is incorrect in this case. I need to make it 0.5 inches and I want to cut into the part. So I have different output selections here. I have join, cut, intersect. In this case, I want to cut it. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now I have a hole in the top of my cube. This is probably a good time to let you in on how to navigate and manipulate your parts in space. The little house icon up here always takes you back to your isometric view. You can click on the scrolly wheel, so click down on it like it's a button, and that allows you to pan around the object. If I hold shift on the keyboard and click on the scrolly wheel, that allows me to free rotate. Or I can use the view cube in the upper left-hand corner to rotate and manipulate the object as well. So that might be a couple tools that you want to consider using as you work through this Inventor practice. All right, so the next two features I have are square pegs that are coming out off the part. It looks like they are 1 inch by 1 inch, and they are extruded a depth of 0.5 inches. So with knowing that, I'm going to do the same thing. You'll notice with Inventor, there's essentially a pattern to making parts in Inventor. So I'm going to click on Start 2D Sketch, and I'm going to click on this front view of the part. 2-point center rectangle tool is an excellent choice in this case. So I can click in the direct center. I know that it's supposed to be 1 inch by 1 inch. So 1 tab 1 on the keyboard, hit enter. I still have my rectangle tool selected. So if I click again, I will be making a rectangle. I can hit escape or right click and say OK to exit out of that command. finish my sketch, and then I want to extrude that a 1/2 inch. So that looks pretty good. Start 2D sketch again. Select the other side where I want this. You'll notice that I don't have my XY coordinate plane. That was really convenient the first time. So because of that, I will have to use my dimension tool to get this located exactly where I need it to be. So grab my dimension tool, dimension from side to side. This will be 0.5 inches from the right to the right side of the part, and then from the bottom to the bottom or top to top. It really doesn't matter. It'll be centered either way. So it's now 0.5 left to right, 0.5 up and down. And so now my square has been centered on that shape. Hit extrude, 0.5, that all looks good. There we go. So now I have made my first part. The next step is up at the top where you click on default. You can change the material to whatever you want. It doesn't make any difference to me. It's just a practice changing the material type so that you can take a look at how those features are then added to that part as you go through and make your different Inventor files. Okay. So once you get here, it is time to save. Inventor is not cloud-based. You have to save your parts and be very intentional about how you save them. So whatever file name you give them, the metadata will be reflected in the the title block. So you need to make sure that as you're naming your parts, you're naming it something relevant to the project so that as it pulls information into the title block in the future, it makes sense. So up here where it says File, I'm going to click on Save. And I want to name this part number 1. So I have lots of part number 1s. I've made it many, many times now. So I'm going to save it as part number 1. That looks good. And then hit Save. Okay, so there you go. That is part number 1.